the man I'm about to introduce to you today, he can go by a lot of different titles, among them Prince, Archduke, Grand Prior of chivalric orders, titles that we might have some familiarity with here in the U.S. But I think for me, in really introducing him, it's more about the man he is, and the good friend, mentor, and business partner that I've been really blessed to have gotten to know over the last several years, working together and building this initiative, and all the impact that we are creating around the world. And that's my good friend, my good business partner, Sandor Habsburg. He's a direct descendant of Catherine the Great of Russia, of Queen Victoria, of Maria Theresia. But it's so wild that just in conversation, it's going to be very easy to take that for granted, just who you're interacting with, and that legacy, the power of 1,000-year legacy, of family that's goes back to the 800s, and I think that's something to really recognize in the grand scheme of things, is the titles, but more importantly, what's being done with that, and that's why I'm really proud to be sitting up here with you, Sandor, and William too. We'll get through all of our introductions here, but I want to introduce you to my dear friend and colleague, Sandor Habsburg.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Jacob. Well, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. It is a real pleasure to be here in the great state of Texas and in Dallas. A legacy in history, unfortunately, we can't take credit for that. That's something that maybe gives you some responsibility or maybe some awareness, maybe a little bit different way of thinking, or maybe how to approach things, and not to think in terms of office, but think in terms of generations.
Yeah.
So since we don't have a whole lot of time, and if we got on that subject, we probably will be here till tomorrow. But maybe a couple words of the journey that has brought us here and what brought us to Krown Impact. I am a mechanical engineer. I studied here in the United States in Rochester, New York. I wrote my first paper on the environment, on greenhouse gases in 1983. So it's a little history. This country's got a wonderful history. One of the speakers before mentioned a book written in 1962, which I haven't read. And I read a paper issued by the President of the United States, Lyndon B. Johnson, in 1965, to be precise, on the 8th of February 1965, which predicted all the problems that we have today. Global warming, temperature change, pollution, everything, what would happen by the year 2000. And they hit the nail on the head. See, and I wrote that in my paper in 1983. He published his paper in 1965. I'm born in 1965, so 60 years ago. And we were talking about it back then. In 1983, we're talking about it. And now in 2025, we're still talking about it.
Yeah.
So, see, that's my little bit of legacy and understanding, and decided that we had to do something about it. So I was sitting back in around 2015, 2017, and started thinking about how to finance nonprofit organizations. And so you start talking to friends, and one of the friends I talked to was on the Board of Trustees of University Technical Endowment. So he told me a little bit how they were doing things. That makes good sense. Take all your donations, invest it properly, use the profits, grow your assets, basically. And I said, I think this is great. I'll follow that track. But I ran into a quandrum. I used to run a financial trading desk in Switzerland. Did it for about 6 years until I decided that wasn't sort of my style of life, because it tends to burn you out. But when I started looking at how to invest, and that's what we're here about, is that I realized that on the financial markets, I wasn't knowing where my money was going. And I said, if I'm taking money for charity, I'm supposed to be doing good, then I should make sure that the money that I'm collecting is invested properly. And this starts a journey. And this is the journey that has led us here. Because I said, okay, what do we want to invest in fundamentally? So we came up with, say, 4 areas. 1, feed the people. So the next thing, people need energy. Then out of my legacy, because I ran telecoms for 25 years, communications, data security, and data sovereignty, which I think is a huge issue. My generation is responsible for that. It's 40 years. We started in 1980 with it. We're 40 years later, and we're doing an abysmal job of that. And the other is healthcare. So if we look at it from a sovereignty, from a national point of view, a country that cannot feed its people and a country that cannot supply its people with energy loses the right to call itself a sovereign country. So I think if politicians thought of things that way, we'd be making big, different decisions. So the previous presentation actually hits the nail on the head in several things. So how do you, if you're investing money, you have to, do all your risk analysis. You got to look for projects. You got to, and I wasn't getting real happy with all of this. So I started saying, okay, what will guarantee me as an investor that a project will be successful? Well, in the end of the day, you can do it as the banks do it, and they always spend a lot of time trying to figure out what will happen if you fail. Well, failure isn't an option. So obviously that logic cannot be useful. So I said, okay, if I do it from a point of view of competency, and I really know all the steps, all the way through the process, including financing, processing, operations, distribution, marketing, sales, if I understand all those points, then I have actually eliminated all the unknowns. And therefore, I can maximize success, which as a result will minimize failure. Now, any risk analyst is going to say, no, you can't do that. I said, but that's the only thing that makes sense because it is working to that objective that we want to achieve. The other is a negative. It is just working against me. I've got to work to that what I want to achieve. That's the maxim. But it only works if you really know what you're doing. And I had a real interesting conversation with investors and bankers on this subject. And the reason that it doesn't work in the classical world that we work in is because if I had to give a bank all of that competency to know what their clients are doing, they go bankrupt. They just can't afford to have that level of competency. So we will be talking to family offices and things. So the investment bankers of the future are family offices who have chosen an area of competency where they know what they're doing. So what brings us here is that I have been very, very lucky. First, know these 2 gentlemen here, both farmers, 5th generation, 8th generation. I don't know, I don't count how many generations we farm. I have a farm. So a lot of people tell us in farming, you can't make money. Well, we have reanalyzed the whole thing. We have data of 15 years of experience that says exactly the opposite. Farming is the most important thing that we have because without farming, we're all going to starve. So we must give it high priority. And we must empower the producer of that food. And I specifically say producer of food, not a farmer. He's a producer. He grows the product, he processes the product, and he sells it to the consumer. This empowers the farmer to become a food producer. He also becomes a businessman. But he's not just learning to grow food, he's learning how to process that food, he's learning how to market, distribute it, sell it, advertise it, and deliver it to his customers. And when you achieve this, all of a sudden you achieve all the things that are failing today in agriculture. The first thing is waste in production, waste in logistics, in distribution, in sales. So the numbers, general numbers, it doesn't apply to everything. It's about this. 30% you lose in production, 30% you lose in distribution, and only half of what you sell is getting eaten. So that means we're living off 20%. So if you hear of all the thoughts that's been said today in different presentations, that we don't have enough acreage, we don't have enough this, that, we got plenty of it. Actually, we've got it coming out of our ears, but we're being extremely wasteful because of the inherent structure that has been created. So if you can eliminate that, if I am producing all the food, growing it, and I'm turning it into the final product, and I'm distributing, I have no logistics, I have no sales, all of these things just disappear. Therefore, your efficiency gets to the point where you're selling it to the client. And now the incredible thing happens. I will only produce what my clients are buying. I'm no longer trying to produce as much as possible and hopeful I will be able to sell it, which really kills the price. But if I only produce that, what my clients want, then I have changed the whole attitude of how we produce food or produce a product as a whole. I'm not pushing it at the market. I'm waiting for the market to tell me how much it needs. And I will deliver that product at the highest quality possible. And all of a sudden, all of the problems that we're talking about marginalize completely. They disappear. All right? The only ones that are going to be really upset with this are the supermarkets, the processors of food, the machine manufacturers, because all of that stuff changes when you take away from industry and give it back to the farms. Give the power back to the farmer. And that's the person that we must value the most in the process. And this is not just theory. We've been doing it for 15 years, or partners of ours have been doing it for 15 years, have proven it. We have real data. And I'll give you a very simple example. Just take a dairy farm. A dairy farmer makes about 5 cents on a quart of milk. He's selling it about 35 to the dairy. If he does it the way we do it, he will be making 70 cents on a quart of milk. All right? And I've been looking at U.S. prices, and I see what you're all paying here in this country, in this state, for regular food. It's scary. I mean, you're paying up to $12 for a dozen eggs. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But what I'm sure is the farmer that's growing them eggs ain't getting it. All right? And that's what we change by taking everything urban. And I think that's what's happening in this country also with the President of the United States and his very good team that he has is make America healthy again. Go back to rural food production. That is extremely powerful. And that's why I also think that regardless of what everybody might say and might not be happy about some things, you know, nobody's perfect, okay? So, but I think this is a huge opportunity to grab that helm of that ship and shift it back into the direction that is necessary. So, and that's where I'm going to say thank you to you all. And then let Jake tell you how we do this.
There you go.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Sandor. So it's kind of like a joke here. We have an Illinoisan, an Idahoan, and an Austrian walking into a bar up here. Like, how did this all happen? So, you know, it's just wild how things happen. But I come from 5 generations of farming in north central Idaho. You know, and what was coming clear to me as you're seeing soil degradation happen, you're seeing yields, you're having to really be on the margin to make it profitable in the system that exists currently. We farm wheat and canola as our rotator. That we have to do something different. But what's the issue? Most farmers don't have the access to capital to make that shift into doing a more regenerative model. There's a lot of fear. My dad and my grandpa, they all did it this way. So that's the fundamental reason why I started this search of like, how do we actually solve these issues, and what is out there that's proven that I can go, because farmers, I think, are pretty well recognized. We're a pretty stubborn bunch. So, show me that this is actually going to work. And that's when I came across this roughly 4 years ago, and I was blown away by the amount of data, the amount of care, the amount of support, the amount of just both science and art that have gone into the system that we're using for all of our competency centers. So this is the model we are going ahead moving forward with, especially in the U.S. The U.S. Outlay of this plan. So how does this work? We have over 480 use cases in Europe, 5 different countries, multiple different growing zones across multiple food groups. So we can do pork, goats, lamb, beef, indoor agriculture, produce. And one of the ones that I think is really the key of it all is the highly tuned aquaponics and the simplicity of the systems, so that it's something that any farmer can learn how to do. That's the farming side, learning how to do all that together. The other side is the support that's given to individual farmers that, let's say, someone wants to do aquaponics and hydroponics. That's fully natural, no chemicals, just using fish as the fertilizer. We use a special type of fish that's been proven out over 15 years, and there's been a 0 default rate across those 480 different use cases in Europe. So we feel very confident bringing this model to the U.S. So what does this solve? Well, what we are trying to do here, what we're doing here is establishing what we are calling competency centers. The goal is to have 2 of these in every state in the country. We're talking about 100 of these. We want these to be the beachhead for rebuilding regenerative farming and doing it in a way where we are achieving scale. Because when I go back home, the question always is, we got to feed the world, right? That's always the moniker. And because we believe that we have to do all farming at huge scale. Well, when you multiply the effect of people coming to these competency centers to learn, to be educated, to learn the modalities of all the different types of farming, that network effect that starts to happen, you will start to see a huge shift back to the local economy and more ownership of the food supply. And I think that's the key point here between all of us, is that the food that is produced needs to start from an owned source. We have to have farmers owning their ground, owning the produce, and owning the process of soup to nuts, from planting, fertilizing, all the way through to marketing and distribution. And the more that we do that, the more we create 100 to 200 mile food zones of food being consumed within 100 to 200 miles, and we have the technology now and the process and best practices where we can actually do that in a proven way, where it's a 0 default rate here in the whole process. So how that works is we come in on it. Let's say an individual farmer raises their hand, wants to do it. We come in, we teach them everything, we help them outfit, we work with them to apply for the different government programs that are available, find private financing. We're building our own, and I'll shoot it over to William. And what we're doing on the nonprofit side for helping incentivize farms to take this on and take on that really solve that capital equation. But if a farmer raises their hand, we basically take them over the course of 2 years, 3 years, whatever it takes to train them in all where they're lacking, and basically make them a production center for their food, so they're not relying on seed companies, they're not beholden to anybody else, and it creates a really resilient farm and local community. So that's generally how it works. That's why I got involved, and I'm so grateful to have my dear friend to the left, William. Comes from a wonderful farming family out of Illinois, and he's really taken the bull by the horns in the nonprofit side. So William, I'd love to talk about how we're working with and building out the nonprofit side to really build this mission.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey guys, I'm William. Thank you for coming out. Y'all are amazing. I can't quit smiling for some reason. Okay. So I'm from Illinois. I grew up farming with my dad and my grandpa. We're from a little tiny town called Auburn. And if you blink, you pass it, I-55, Chicago to St. Louis. But we've been there since 1790. We started farming in 1835. Both sides of my family, we're all corn and soybean farmers. And, I didn't value it so much when I was young. I just kind of grew up doing it. Any type of farming, I just kind of have a thumb for it. I love it. When I was 24, went to Hawaii in the winter on vacation because in Illinois it snows, so we can't farm in the cold weather. And I started farming coffee. and coffee is like a 90-day window. Coffee is a cherry fruit, grows on a tree like grapes, and that little pit or seed is the coffee bean. So I was fascinated by being able to live in Hawaii in the winter and farm. And I patented how to preserve the cherry waste. I make a brain nutraceutical. I sell that to beverage, cosmetic, food supplement companies. It's a cognitive memory ingredient. So I'd make more money on my waste material than coffee. But what I realized quickly was that all these Hawaiian farmers, they were sending their kids off to the mainland and they weren't actually farming. And so one generation loses that experience, and then all of a sudden, you don't have coffee farmers that are family oriented. They're now these like big companies. And so I got really sad about that. I was like, I want to educate people in agriculture. I mean, coffee we drink every day. There's 1 billion cups consumed in just the United States. And we drink coffee every day. No one knows how it's grown. No one knows how hard it is to, make a cup of coffee. And I think if people understood that, they'd be like, I understand why this is $5. This is a very tough business, So I wanted to build an ag school. And so my thought was like, we could go to Hawaii. People could come on a holiday. I could teach them how to be a barista. I could teach them how to, make a nice cup of coffee, how to grow, how to market, how to sell, how to, work with other countries because it's a global commodity. And all of a sudden, I looked at it and I was like, this is really like a social good project. Like, this is a not-for-profit. Non-profit just means we really just want to help people. It doesn't mean that it can't make money, but the goal is not like making money. The goal is like to do something that's good. So, I started dreaming up like, where are the most beautiful places, in the country where people can come have an experience and learn something and then take that to their local market. So coffee was like really resonating. And I had a friend from Nashville that goes, oh, you've got to meet my friend Jacob. They're doing regenerative ag. So I get on a phone call and a video chat with Sandor and Jacob. And Sandor is like, we've been doing this regenerative ag in Europe for 15 years, and you should come check it out. And I said, never joke with me about a trip to Europe because I will be there tomorrow. Like that, I will do that. And so sure enough, I flew to Vienna and we met with Sandor, and we went to these farm-to-table restaurants with the aquaponics that they were doing. And it was like literally the best food I'd ever had in history. And I'm like, this is indoor farming? I totally want to do this. This is amazing. So what I thought was we could build ag schools, we could create housing, we could do farm-to-table, like cafe, farmer's market, and then we could grow that in our local community. And, you've got, like, in small-town America, we have a Dollar General in, like, every small town. Well, they've got, like, product, but we need fresh, produce. So, and I'm probably skipping around a bit, but when I was in college, I went to undergrad in Springfield, Missouri, a little private Christian school called Evangel University, home of Bass Pro Johnny Morris, home of, like, John Q. Hammond and, like, O'Reilly Auto Parts. And my roommate in school, his name's Matt. And his uncle had basically like this mission to feed people. And he's like, we want to, work with Walmart. We've got all this shelf-stable product. We can feed families that are in need, just-in-time delivery. And I said, well, I'm a farmer and I work with farmers, and let's do that. So over like 20 years, I helped start a not-for-profit with Matt called Convoy of Hope. And, it has just grown to be like such a beautiful organization, all family oriented, based in Springfield. It was like a few $1 million a year in donations, up to I think I mean I hate even doing numbers, but like over like $1 billion in food yearly. I mean it's an incredible group. But in 2010 there was an earthquake in Haiti, and Convoy was shipping food down there through Mission of Hope, and we were feeding 90,000 orphans a day in Haiti. In a week, it was like 1 million meals. And went down there and taught Haitians how to grow rice and beans. And half the meals are from the food program and half are from the local farmer. And so my goal is like, I don't want to give people fish, I want to teach them how to fish. Like I want to teach you something where you can do it in your backyard, in your local market. And so the not-for-profit side is just basically touting that, communities need this, and we can show them and give them tools that can, make their local market a better place. I don't know if you guys have ever lived in a small town where your grocery store closes, but that's very depressing. Yeah. So, the goal is to grow food in your local market so you don't have to rely on like your Amazon Prime and all this stuff. If you've ever been to like Israel, we've got kibbutzes, right? So, it's like we can build these ecosystems, grow beautiful food, and we can do that in our local market and help our local community. So that's a little bit of kind of the backstory. But Crown Green Foundation is taking these local markets, building affordable housing, and growing food in the local market and helping the community. And so I'm very honored to be with these guys, very blessed. God is good. But the more that we spend time together, the more it's resonating that this is an impact. So I'll hand it back.
Awesome. Thank you, William. I think we can open it up for some questions, but I just wanted to make a point on, the sustainability piece, for generational sustainability, which is what we want. I want this thing to be beyond my great grandkids, and how do you do that? Well, of course it has to be profitable. So that's the piece I didn't really discuss on how this works. So we've gotten it to the point where in especially the dairy and the aquaponics piece, we're generating well between north of 36% net profit for these farmers. Sometimes we're seeing up as high as above 50% profitability, after about the 2-year mark of the conversion. So it's a model that's proven. There's the data to back it up, and we're moving into the U.S. In a very strong manner, because I believe that the nutritional value of our food has plummeted here. We're seeing it in the health issues. Our gentleman from Iowa, Idaho, Iowa, we always get mixed up. They think I grow corn.
Merlin.
I think I grow corn, not potatoes. But anyway, we need to do this, and we need to do it fast, because I was just looking at pictures of some old family pictures of my folks and everybody back in the 70s, and these are old pictures, but everybody was like glowing. They were lean. What happened? And I think it it doesn't take much to realize that our food and nutritional density is incredibly important. We really need to bring that back, and we need to do local food supply in a profitable manner.
Yeah.
I just like to tie it all together. So we have 3 areas of activity: building farms to show and teach people how to grow food with these systems. We have consultancy to help farmers that want to, as Jay said, raise their hand, said, hey, I want to do this also. We will help them from financing, go to their bank, get them the loans they need, all the way through till they're profitable. It's about a 2-year process. And since William came in with his absolute caring, visionary, nonprofit approach to the whole thing, we said, we're going to have Krown Green Foundation, which means that all the money that this foundation will collect will be invested into this type of farming, and the profits and the food that are produced here are again going to go back to charity to feed people that need help, and of course also teach people. So we're trying to cover all our bases this way, and this is nothing that is in competition with anything. It is like, here, come, learn it, and go out and do it. And if you need help, we're here to help you. And there is actually no segment of agriculture that is not touched by this, but a lot of it can be done in symbiosis. So, for example, we do in Austria and in Germany, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, a lot of dairy. So it's very dairy-centric. But I don't need to start a dairy farm here. I've got great dairy farmers. We can do partnerships with dairy farmers. We can add the process and put profits back to them. The same with cattle ranching. It takes a lot of space, and I think the state of Texas got some of the best cattle ranches out there, right? But we can add to these cattle ranches a diversification that can dramatically increase their profit and their resilience, and they can service their markets much, much better, augmenting their thing. So I haven't done all the numbers, but I did numbers with Jacob, and we took 5,000 acres of wheat, right? And basically, it takes 5 guys, 5,000 acres. And can't tell his numbers, but I can tell you with 5 guys, with this farming added to that, I will double his profits with his complete existing infrastructure in minimal investment. And it will make him much more resilient because he's no longer dependent on that one product that he's producing. Because, boy, if the weather ain't there, if it don't rain, or it don't have that, it's terrible. And if you have a wonderful crop, so is everybody else, so the price is down anyway. So this is it. We're trying to do this not just out of the kindness of our heart, but out of our absolute conviction that we got to do this. Yeah. And we got to do this everywhere. And we're still exporting industrial farming, and we got to change that. So we're looking at projects in Africa, in Asia, a lot more in Europe. We got lots of work to do. And somebody says, oh, we only do emerging markets. And I said, yes, right. This is an emerging market right here in the United States. Yeah. You don't got to go far. Here, you know the language, you know the law, you know the rules. Put your money here. Put your money in the United States. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Questions?
So I'd love to open up for some questions.
Merlin.
We got Merlin.
I can't help myself here because
Merlin.
we are so on a roll here. We are so on a roll. I told you a little bit about Iowa, and everybody knows a little bit about what has happened. Pardon? Okay, I'll come down and spend some time here for sure.
Iowa, join us. That's no problem.
Here's my thought, and it's just totally out of the air. You're talking about 5 farmers. We have 80,000 farmers in Iowa, and most of them are looking at going broke in the near future. We have 99 counties. Would you be okay with setting up 99 units rather than 100?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's just one state, and you can do another 100 across the country, and I'll help you, along with this Texas guy.
Yeah, Jeff.
But is it possible? Because our rural Iowa is destitute. We are a food desert. We import 90% of our food, as I said earlier, and by the time it hits the table, there is no nutrition there. Thus, we end up being number 2 in cancer, number 4 in obesity, chronic disease, blah, 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 blah. I could see in the big scheme of things, literally, I mean, right now, Iowa's ground zero, because I made that decision when I saw how bad it was, and that we needed a statewide model that we could prove to the country that this can be done. What if we were to look at Iowa, and then Texas, of course, and literally go into a county and sell that county onto building this kind of food system so they can feed their people within that county, and then, of course, the excess, if there is, grown in some counties, can be exported within the state, within a reasonable driving area to keep the CO2 down. But what if we were to talk about that? We're going to meet tomorrow, I think, and talk further about this. But I want to give you guys something to sleep on, because I'm going to be meeting with the board chair of the World Food Prize and Secretary Vilsack, now Governor Vilsack, in July. I think I shared this with you guys. Vilsack is on the same page. Now, he's had to walk a lot of different paths, as you do in politics, and a lot of people, have an issue with him. I've worked very closely with him. And so with his power and who he could connect us with, but we could build a statewide model as fast as you guys can produce it, because I have to believe this can get funded along with what you're doing. And so I just let you sleep on that, and we'll talk more about this tomorrow.
Beautiful.
I'll give you some numbers, something to think about till tomorrow. So this little setup here will feed 4,000 to 5,000 people all year long.
That's phase 1.
That's phase 1.
I like it.
Okay? And you've got about 5 to 10 people working there. So you've got education, you can do drop training, you can hire people. They don't need to be able to read and write. We can teach them. We have our own academy, we have all the teaching, everything you need. You can run this as a school, but it's basically designed to be for profit. And after that, you can scale it as your market needs it. So, not everybody needs the same products. Not everybody needs the same type of food. They're different tastes. So you can adjust it. It's no problem. And that block, which has got the colors, it takes care of dairy, training, meat processing, vegetables, and fish. And you basically covered everything. The only thing we're missing is the bakery, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. Seeing is believing. You get food, you eat things, and if they tell you what you're eating, you go like, no. This is something else. This can't be. It is when you really perfect and really try to do things in a wholesome way. It's a lot of work to get there, and then you got to simplify it. So we've detected this whole process to keep it as simple as possible, as little electronics in there as possible, Just that it needs, I need a temperature sensor, I need a couple of pumps, and that's about it. You can run this with a couple of solar panels.
Sandor, did you tell them how many of these you've already built?
Well, to be precise, that what we're showing you here was designed for a huge project, which was going to be 3,000 times bigger than what you're seeing here. But the problem is you have to teach people. So we designed this as an educational center, but it would cover all the facets of production. What we've done in Europe, we have converted over 500 farms, which were going bankrupt, to profitable food producers. Okay? So literally what we do is we come in and we help these guys write a business plan. They've never written a business plan in their life. Sure. We go with them to their bank and usually renegotiate their loans. Get the capital that is needed to invest. And then we help them with all the process, designing, definitions, applying for all the permits they're going to need to be able to produce the food, right down to every page that you need when you had to go and clean things. You have to keep track of all of these things. It's when you're selling to the consumer, you need all the way down to labeling, ingredients, lists. And if you try to learn that, you could go to university, but they're not going to teach you. So we've designed the courses to teach the people all the way, and we go with them. So they get for us bookkeeping software, we need distribution, logistics software, marketing and sales, websites, social media, until they are really selling their product. So if you take a farmer who's producing, I have to think in tons, because you guys think in gallons, and I'm gallons, it's not working in my head. Okay, let's do tons. Well, I'll give you a farmer. We have a dairy farmer. He's producing 300,000 kilos, which means 3,000 tons of milk a year. Okay? And he couldn't live from it. Basically, was getting ready. He has 100 cows, and he's producing 3,000 tons of milk. Today, he's still selling 2,000 tons to the dairy, but 1,000 tons he is selling directly. And now he's a highly profitable business. Before he was making 5 cents on a quart, which is a kilo, so times 1,000. So what's that, 50?
Don't ask
Well,
me.
whatever.
It's
My
too
math,
late.
my,
It's
yeah,
four-
my,
it's 4:30.
my math is gone. But anyways, he is going from 5 cents to 70 cents on a kilo. And that's just, it's easy math. It's a multiple. Yes, Bart.
Yeah, tell us any ideas about your time frame of when you'll be deploying these first farms here in the U.S.
This year.
Amazing.
All right. Well, Bart from Eden Grow, who spoke earlier today, is a very good friend and partner. And Eden Grow systems do some very phenomenal things. Besides, they can grow food in space, which we hadn't even tried. I think combining that, what Bart is doing, what we're doing, is very interesting. Because in the aquaponics side, since it's an all-integrated closed-loop system that we're running, we're only working with natural ingredients. So actually, all we do is feed the fish, and the plants keep the fish water clean.
Yeah.
All right? And we have to balance that. So we can produce a lot of vegetables. So this plant here is planning to do about 100 tons of fish a year. Okay? That's a lot of fish. And we can produce about as much in tonnage in vegetables. But the grow system lets us grow basically anything in any mixture. So I'm producing, say, for a restaurant, I'm not just producing carrots. No, I'm producing carrots, radishes, celery, salads, whatever, microgreens, okay, in mix, as the customer needs. And Eat and Grow has come up with this wonderful growing system. I mean, they could grow it in a cellar, right? But one of the things you got to come to Houston and look at it. It's really great stuff.
Yeah.
But one of the problems with aquaponics usually is not everything will grow in water, like potatoes won't. You need a substrate. So we've been working with special clay-based, like brick chip substrate to grow potatoes. But Eat and Grow, they can grow it with their system
Yeah.
without substrate.
Yeah.
And potatoes, it's wild. And when you grow food this way, you produce really clean food. So what I like to give the example is the head of salad. Now, people think head of salad is sort of a low-grade product, but actually, for effort, time, cost, it's extremely profitable. So that's why all these vertical farmers like salads. But in this system, when you harvest the head of salad, you pluck it off the grow system, it goes straight into the plastic or paper bag that you're going to deliver it to it with the roots. And it'll stay farm fresh for a week because it's a living plant. You have no pesticides, you have no dirt, you have no washing, nothing. And the manipulation is minimal. You simply pluck it off the system, put it in the bag, and out goes the door. And actually, you only harvest it because you have an order.
Yeah.
If you don't have order, you're not harvested. It can stay growing there for a week more. It's not going to happen. So thank you. Any more questions?
No, that's pretty magical, and we love potatoes, so we got to keep that going. That's a big
Well,
thing.
since our friend Merlin has potatoes.
No, he's corn. I'm
Corn.
potatoes.
You're potatoes. Okay, sorry. I get things mixed up.
I was
Anyways.
corn state.
But anyways, those things that
We do grow a lot of potatoes in Iowa. It's just not,
it's not Idaho potatoes, yeah.
exactly.
You didn't have Marilyn Monroe wearing a potato sack to advertise your potatoes.
But if you want to talk about visions, right? This is just what we're talking is hard facts. This is not experimental. We've been doing this, but in the visionary side, if you have this type of growth system, you can do exactly that. What William has done, you can start looking what can you do with that what is not eaten, what is being thrown away. You have it fresh. You have it very clean. It's not contaminated. Right? We have a lot of problems with salt contamination. We do worry about that because we got to feed our animals. We have to grow feed and stuff. So you have to do soil analysis. You have to do a lot of work on the soil to make it return. The humus has to be built up. And there are a lot of good bacteria and stuff that we can use to decontaminate soil. So you have arsenic problem. You have oil pollution problems. There are ways of restructuring that soil. But what I'm really excited is the whole nutraceutical side of how to help people because we are growing actually in lab quality conditions. And we did some experimentation with hemp plants because hemp, about 80% of the hemp that we produce for medicinal purposes fail on the chemical analysis because of natural contaminants. In our grow system, we don't have contaminants. Right? So we can deliver directly into that processing. So think of all the medicinal plants that we know generally, but think of all of the indigenous medicines, all the plants that we've used, that we've known for generations, that we just ignore. And you can grow it in this type of environment. So I think we have the future vision for a healthy world.
It gets the people fired up. We got to make America healthy again. We appreciate all y'all's time. When you think, we might have time for one more question. Leah might cut us off. The future of robots and stuff, the autonomous vehicles. I see that. I see Elon, the robo-taxi, the robots. Is this something as tech advances we'll be able to plug into your systems? Like if we end up having like iRobot characters walk around, will we be able to train them to do the same thing and kind of scale it? Or what do you guys see on that?
I think it's. Oh, sorry. I'll jump in real quick. I think, and I want to hear. Would love. We've talked a lot. Spent evenings, discussing this, and I think we really. I forget who was speaking about it earlier, but we have to do best to ensure that the future is human, and that being able to work I know if I'm not working, or I get antsy. Like we need a focus, we need a vision, and so we want to make sure that we maintain the dignity of each and every human person, and we've created it in a way where the labor piece is an ownership piece, and I think moving into this area of robotics, I mean, in one of our family businesses, yeah, we've done robotic lines, but we hire a lot of the town, and we're one of the biggest fabrication facilities, and we are the biggest in the state. But it's probably a both and. But we really want to focus on future is human.
Yeah, look, automation has a good purpose, right? Particularly when we're dealing with very routine operations, something that happens continuously, right? And you don't want to have a human being sitting there doing that. You have all the problems, carpal tunneling, all the health problems, all that. But what we're trying to do is actually create jobs, right? But productive jobs where people are actually doing something, which I'd say the level of sensors today, they're getting there, but they're not there yet. And there is one thing that a human being can do, which is very, very hard to teach a robot to do, and that is to be aware of things that are different. In other words, if something changes in the system or something's happening, the robot's not going to see it. The human being is going to see it. So the whole process of that, what you're doing, so if you take one of these little farms here, we're dealing with fish, we're dealing with vegetables, we're dealing with milk, we're dealing with that. We're doing the slaughtering process, we're producing sausages. We're doing a lot of different types of jobs, right? And the power of the system is to be flexible. And that's where the robotics and industrialization fails. It is very rigid. It'll do that one job and it'll do an excellent job of it. But this is not what we're trying to do. We're trying to be as flexible as possible. Therefore, we want to have as high a skill level as possible. Yes, and as Jay said, it's supposed to give dignity back to it. And we do have a problem that we don't have enough work for people. Or a lot of people are doing a lot of work which is good for them. So how can you put the humanity back into the work? This is as important. So if you wanted to get real philosophical, so I'm going to get philosophical. This can take all night, okay, guys? So we're not going to, where'd the party come? No, just think of it really simple. We've got two types of society. We have a value-based society and we have a consumer society. Consumer society is exploitation of human and natural resources. I'll just leave it at that. We want to focus on a value-based society. It's a society of respect for people, for humans, for plants, for everything we do. So we don't waste. Why? Because we have respect for it, because we value it, right? And if we change this way of thinking in the way we do things, it's not what we do, it is how we do it. And that's why we also want to run these things as educational centers, because then we can pass on this thought process and give value back to that what we do. So when you think you're going shopping, right? Well, if you're thinking your shopping list, what you're going to eat the next 3 days, what you're going to cook, oh, I need 3 tomatoes. Yeah, well, 10 tomatoes would be cheaper. But no, I only need 3 tomatoes, so I'll buy 3 tomatoes. And all of a sudden, I'm not wasting anymore. Why? Because I value that what I'm buying. It's actually real simple. But nobody teaches it, so that's what we want to teach.
Back to the future.
Yes, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you all very
Thank you.
much.
Bless you.